Welcome to the Horror Interview Show. I'm Skullface. Today I'm interviewing Bret McCormick about creating the horror film, The Abomination. How did you guys construct and control the creature in the movie?
Hey, Skullface, thanks for having me on. I built the main creature out of plywood. I made some hinged jaws out of plywood. I made the teeth out of balsa wood. I used a whole lot of cotton balls and paper towels that had been dipped in latex to make the skin of the creature. And the under layer of the skin was some thin um, upholstery material, like you might use to upholster the seat of a dining room chair.
Was it difficult to direct the more gory scenes and why or why not?
The extremely gory scenes in The Abomination, um, especially toward the end, where the character of Cody has a pitchfork and he's shoveling all these guts into the mouth of the monster. Those were actual intestines that we had gotten from a slaughterhouse out there in the country near our location. Um, it was hot. We were in a house with no air conditioning. The smell of those intestines was just really, really hard to put up with. I was behind the camera. I had a fan next to me blowing the smell mostly away. But the actors on the set, and especially the poor person inside the cabinet operating the creature, uh, had to put up with such a horrendous smell and not to mention just the grossness of even touching that stuff. I'm just really glad that we had such a committed cast and crew who were willing to do that.
Was there any reason that you decided on a Blu-ray release at this point in time?
I was contacted out of the blue a couple of years ago by Rob Hoschild at Visual Vengeance and Wild Eye Releasing, and he asked if I would participate in some special features videos they wanted to produce to accompany a Blu-ray release of The Abomination. Naturally, I was very happy to participate in that. I no longer own the rights to the film, but I know the man who does own it. And I was really glad to see the opportunity for a new generation of film fans to see the abomination and find out what all the buzz was about. There was this mystique that had built up around the movie, and only a certain number of VHS tapes were made in the initial run. And as word eventually got around, especially after the internet sort of exploded all over the country and all over the world, people were talking about the abomination, but very few people actually owned copies of it. And at one point, VHS copies of it were selling for hundreds of dollars. So this is an opportunity for collectors to own their own copy of The Abomination. It's got like 5 hours of special features. It's got a comic book. It has all sorts of wonderful extras that I never imagined would be included in a release of this film. And I'm just very, very grateful that Rob and the people at Video Vengeance were so excited about putting the movie out.
Where did the idea of the movie come from?
I knew that I wanted to do a very gory horror film, sort of in the tradition of Herschel Gordon Lewis. So I knew it didn't have to have a very intricate story. I wrote a 20-page treatment about this woman who thinks she's got a tumor. She's under the influence of this sort of bizarre television televangelist guy named Brother Fogg. She coughs up the tumor. The tumor ends up taking over her son, and her son becomes the sort of the slave of this demonic creature from ancient Babylon. Where that came from, I can't tell you. Initially, I had the idea of a vagina with teeth in it. Then I had the monster called the Abomination. Then the Abomination was something that's mentioned in the Bible. So I thought we'd throw in the biblical references. And at that time in the 80s, there were a whole lot of television evangelists that were just making a lot of money people and seemingly were exposed along the way for not being especially sincere in their faith. And I thought that was something that would add a nice dimension to the story.
Did you receive any criticisms for this movie since this movie contained religious elements?
Surprisingly, I never received any criticism about the televangelism and all that angle of the story. Now, there probably were people who were offended by that, but I'm pretty sure that most people who would be offended by that are really not the kind of people that would watch this sort of movie in the first place. So, fortunately for us, no, I didn't have to take any great heat over that. And really, I want to go on the record as saying I am not anti religion at all. I believe religion has served some very useful purposes. It's helped to civilize humanity, to give them a greater sense of family and connectedness to other people. I don't necessarily subscribe to the beliefs that a lot of people do in their religions, but I respect the right of all people to believe whatever they want. And I think although some horrible things have been committed by religion over the years, uh, a lot of good has been accomplished by them as well in the way of charitable services and in just the civilizing mindset that religions generate.
For people sensitive to spoilers, jump ahead a few minutes. Do. Why did you put so much gore at the very beginning?
Well, back when we made this movie, almost all of the distributors that we were talking with insisted that the movie needed to be 90 minutes long. Well, I only shot for 10 days, which seemed like a very quick shoot to me. And I was having trouble getting 90 minutes out of it without bogging the film down. Now, we did have some additional scenes in the film that we cut out and didn't put in the original release. Those are available as special features in this Blu ray. So people can see now some of the scenes that were cut out. Initially, I felt like this was a horror movie. We had to keep it moving forward. I didn't want too much people sitting around talking, that sort of thing. So, the reason why I put that stuff at the beginning was I felt like the only people who were going to see this movie were people who were renting it for the gore effects. And I had never seen a movie where they did 2 minutes of just over the top gore at the beginning and then made you watch the movie to find out what it was all about. I thought it was a good ploy. Some people say it's a spoiler, but I really, my gut feeling is that spoilers are not really a thing. If spoilers were a thing, nobody would watch the same movie over again. There are film fans out there that watch the same movie 10, 20, 30 times. If that's the case, where's the spoiler effect? I mean, they've already seen the whole movie. I think people have been trained to think that spoilers are a bad thing. In this case, I really don't believe exposing the audience to all of the gore at the beginning of the movie was a bad thing. First of all, if you're not up for the gore, you know right away you're not going to watch this thing. You can turn it off and go on to the next film that you rented. Um, that's why I did it.
What did you like about writing screen productions?
I was a writer before I was a filmmaker. I'm still a writer now. Um, I enjoy writing. Writing is my favorite form of creativity. I sometimes paint. I sometimes still dabble in video, but writing is by far my favorite form of creative expression. I'm the co creator and sometimes co editor of a series of books called Roadkill, which come out every October, one volume every October. The eighth volume is about to come out. It's a very successful horror series, uh, horror stories set in Texas, written by people from Texas. So we've discovered a lot of great young talent here in Texas, and we've had the privilege of printing some stories by some very well-known names like Joe Lansdale and some others. I'm very happy about that. In addition, I've written a couple of nonfiction books. One is called Texas Schlock, and it's a nonfiction examination of many of the extremely low budget horror and science fiction films that were shot in the state of Texas, beginning in the 50s with Larry Buchanan and moving all the way up to the present day.
Over your career, what have been some of the things that have really helped you achieve your goals?
I think, like most really low budget filmmakers, I haven't ever 100% achieved my goals. I have had some very lucky breaks. I've worked with some really wonderful people. In 1995, when I wanted to make a movie for Roger Corman, and I sent him a letter with my demo tape and a request to make a movie, and he called me back right away and let me make a movie for him. I was very excited about that. That was a huge breakthrough for me. I've always tried to treat people the way I would want to be treated. I worked with a lot of wonderful people. A lot of them have given a great deal of blood, sweat, and tears to my productions. I never paid much and I did work people hard, but I never asked anything of them that I wasn't willing to do myself. So I would say having a great team of people willing to work with me has been my greatest asset all along. Determination and tenacity, being willing to keep going even in the face of low budgets, tight schedules, uh, various kinds of setbacks that are always going to happen. Just being determined to move forward, even if it wasn't a realization of my dream exactly as I had imagined it. I think that was an important part of my mindset that helped me accomplish some of the things that I did.
Are there things you wish you could have done differently, and if so, what were they?
Oh, there are always things that you wish you could have done differently. I think if I had everything to do over again, I would have stopped production after my first movie, gone to work for a film distributor, a video distributor, or someone in that field, learned a little bit more about that business before coming back and making more movies. I was raising uh, budgets in the tens of thousands of dollars back then, which is low for a movie, but still a lot of money. And you're risking that investment when you don't have a solid distribution plan. These days, I think it's really great that we have so many streaming venues like Amazon Prime and Tubi, and just so many places where people who have made movies, which they can make for much less money than before, uh, they can find a place where people can see their movie and they can let people know that their movie is there so that anyone who wants to see their film has ready access to it. They don't, it's not like the same situations we had in the past where only certain video stores would buy my film and it might not be available to a lot of my friends who really wanted to see it and would have rented it had it been available to them.
When you were writing films, how did you ensure your films were good?
Well, a lot of people would probably tell you that my films are not good because that's a very subjective judgment, of course. I always liked really low budget movies. I frequently liked movies that some of my friends or relatives would just not get at all. Um, so I think one of the best things a beginning screenwriter can do is keep the scenes short. A screenplay that's made up of many 1 minute scenes, even if it's a very low budget film, is going to be better than a screenplay that has scenes that go on for 5 minutes.
Are there some things with making movies that were easier in the 80s and 90s, or is everything easier overall now?
I think pretty much everything is easier overall now, with one exception. People have become more and more acclimated to film production. So, where we used to be able to go knock on a farmer's door and say, "Hey, we're making a movie. Can we shoot some scenes here on your land?" Most of the time they would go, "Okay." They weren't fearful of it. I think now people are afraid of lawsuits, and they've seen a lot of things about Hollywood productions that have gone sour, and so you have to be a lot more careful about your dealings with locations now. But I think that's the only thing that was easier for us back then. Um, Filmmaking was a lot more expensive then. To be taken seriously, you had to shoot on film, which was very costly. The post production was costly. And if you didn't know anything about distribution, which was the situation I found myself in, you were at the mercy of whoever you could get interested in your film after you had spent all this time and effort and expense making it.
Where can people follow you?
Well, I have a small WordPress website to promote my book, Texas Schlock, and that's at texasschlock.com. I have another WordPress website to promote my paintings, and that is BAM, BAM, for Bret Anthony McCormick, BAM, BAM, art, dot studio. And I welcome communication from um, anybody out there who has anything they would like to say to me. My email address is on both of those sites, and anyone who wants to get in touch with me is welcome to do so.
I would like to thank Bret for the interview. For people watching, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, and whatever else you do to videos if you're watching in the future.
Skullface, thank you very much for having me on.